Yeah, the trouble is that the genie's out of the bottle, and you have to think what's going to happen now, and it looks completely catastrophic because if every country in Europe, for instance, had adopted the Italian approach, then things might, after a very painful period, might come out okay. And I can foresee the infection rate in Italy going down as a result of all this lockdown stuff. And in maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks, it's sort of beaten in Italy. But as soon as Italy opens up, there'll be a reinfection again because people will be coming in to the country from other countries, including Britain, worst of all, which won't have done anything, and reinfecting. So you can't, even if you're doing the right things, you can't do them in isolation in this world. The world is too interconnected. So we'll see the virtuous countries like Italy being punished because once they start opening up to the world again, saying, look, we've beaten it, then everybody else in the world is going to say, no, you haven't. We're going to come and visit you now and give you all the virus again. And the villains here are Britain and the United States. Britain deliberately having a policy of letting everybody in the country be infected, which is insane because what they haven't considered is what's the rest of the world going to think? If Britain has a deliberate policy of allowing everyone to be infected, you have to assume every British person is infected with the virus. So nobody else in the world would allow anybody from Britain to come and visit. I mean, the British are an arrogant bunch anyway. I imagine they're the most important people in the world. But in this case...
Not more important than Americans, excuse me.
Oh, no, it's second most important people. But nobody in Europe is going to allow the British to visit Europe. I mean, they haven't...
Yeah.
Johnson hasn't cottoned onto that allowing everybody in Britain to get infected means you assume that every British person is a carrier.
Yeah.
And therefore he mustn't be allowed out the country. So nobody in Britain can be allowed to travel anywhere to any other country.
So Britain then becomes a floating petri dish.
Yeah, but Britain becomes like the Diamond Princess.
Yeah.
And America as well, which is also doing nothing effective, is going to have this worst possible case of which will be, again, millions of dead. And, American society can't handle millions of dead. I mean, you haven't had millions of dead ever. I mean, even the American Civil War was less than 1 million dead, and all the wars since are less than 1 million dead. So Europe's had First World War and Second World War, terrible numbers of dead. But so America hasn't had that level of death. And it's going to.
I'm sorry. There is or are beneficiaries of this plague. The non-human species, the species that, I don't know if bats are killed by the virus or if they just carry it, but it doesn't infect them in a way that they die from it. I have no idea. But if there's a breakdown of civilization, even if only 5% of the global human population dies from this, assuming 100% of humanity gets infected, but only 5% dies, as we've touched on, the economic system will be a shambles. There will be all kinds of repercussions of that, including nuclear meltdowns potentially, and crop failures, and all kind. I mean, imagine if, God forbid, Amazon, we're talking about the company, not the rainforest, should go bust. We're talking about huge disruption that will result in lots of starvation and we're talking about the collapse of civilization, potentially, because of the damage to this gonzo economic system that has to grow or collapse. And the beneficiary potentially is the rest of nature, that our assault on the rest of nature may be curtailed.
Well, yes. I mean, about 3 or 4 years ago, I remember reading a very nice, sort of
You
useful
caught
book.
it. You caught it.
I caught.
I have to
I got
clean
it.
off my screen. I'm sorry.
Yeah, a book by on a different subject by Bob Hunsiger called "High Tide on Main Street," and it was a book about sea level rise, and concluded that sea level rise was happening far faster than was being accepted by in IGPP, by PCC rather, and would get faster because of all the accelerated losses from Greenland and Antarctica.
Yep.
Anyway, he drew his own exponential curve for what was going to happen to global sea levels, and concluded that just looking at America, the coastal cities are going to be wiped out at quite a high rate. But most of all, his analysis was that the high-priced coastal land, which is where all the highest-priced real estate is on the coast. It's where all the most expensive properties are. That's all going to be underwater, and that the result could completely collapse the American economy. I mean, forgetting loss of life because people would have time to retreat, but loss of high-priced real estate and loss of coastal cities would wipe out the American economic system before the end of the century. That's just America, but this is but it's a worldwide effect, of course. But that was on a different topic, and on a topic which everybody thinks of as mild and minor. A minor aspect of climate change is global sea level rise. But that global sea level rise can itself wipe out the economic system. So the economic system is in fact incredibly fragile and to natural disasters.
And if things don't go as badly as you and I are speculating they might or will go, again, there's a probability here. We could be wrong, or we could be partially right. It's not a binary right or wrong. The one of the benefits that I've been highlighting is that the ordinary people, are beginning to see what a house of cards we're living in, with an economic system where the supply chain might be interrupted. I live in Hawaii, where it's a very well-known meme, an idea that if Matson, the principal ocean liner, cargo carrier, if Matson stopped sailing, then there would be about 4 days supply of food on island. That's a debatable number. Some people say a week, some people say a month, some people say the fresh stuff will run out sooner, but the canned goods will. When I heard the buyer from Whole Foods answer that question at a conference about food security, she said, if Matson stopped sailing, the shelves would be bare in a couple of days because of the panic buying that sets in. And you're seeing that now. You're seeing that. Yes. So people realize, what have we got here, And that might be a blessing in disguise if we can weather this storm, that we may actually realize that our economic system is not fit to purpose.
Yes, the difference, I suppose, between this and climate change is we hold in our hands the ability to solve the climate change problem. I mean, we caused it. We know how we caused it. We know what we have to do to solve it, and we can solve it if we make that our top priority instead of building hypersonic weapons systems. We can do it. And the sad thing is we're not going to do it, and the whole thing's going to unravel. But in the case of this virus, we can't do it. We haven't got an antidote to the virus, and we can't be even sure how you catch the thing. And we know, well, we don't, well, we think we know what to do to save ourselves, but it's so drastic that a country like Britain is not prepared to do it. They'd rather have the terrible consequences in a month and a half's time than do something now. It's that bad. And it's worse. So in fact, it's worse than climate change, because climate change we hold it in our hands to solve it. But this virus, we don't. It's going to run its course, and when it runs its course, it's going to wipe out millions of people, and it's going to wipe out the economic system of the planet.
Yeah, I think we probably should put a wrap on this phase of our conversation. There's a whole lot to digest, and I've got my work cut out for me now to publish this as quickly as possible, and I will be publishing it within the next couple of days as soon as I can get it chopped up into bite-sized pieces that people can get their heads around. So, but let's try to plan to get together again in a few days, and see where things have gone. I am not watching the expansion rates of the rates of increase in cases and deaths as you are. So I will probably ask you to fill me in on what's going on. I avoid the news. The news is so bad lately that I'm depressed enough with what I know. I don't need to know more. I need my primary work, and the thing that makes me the happiest, is when I'm trying to warn people and wake them up. So,
well, okay. Well, I've got a couple of things I can send you straight away on this exponential growth. One is a very good daily statistics output that gives very clearly what's happening in every country and the rates of rise and so on. It's easy to see, and you can just look at the section for the US if necessary, or look at Italy, or look at whatever. So that's very useful. And there's another general article, why we must act now and immediately, and with this maximum rigor, because if we wait even a day, every time we wait a day or 2 days, because of the exponential growth rate, we're ending up with thousands more dead down the line. So
this has touched me personally in a way that's interesting, and perhaps we'll end on this note. A few days ago, I heard about a concert, not a concert, a performer who's wonderful blues singer. Taj Mahal is his name, like the famous landmark in India. But he's a black performer who's a bluesman, the ultimate bluesman, and he's got a wonderful backup band. And he is playing all this weekend at a jazz club called the Blue Note, or a music club, the Blue Note, which started in New York, and now they have a dozen or so around the world. And I have 2 tickets that cost me fairly dearly for a table down front, and I'm going to blow it off. I'm not going to use the tickets because I'll be subjecting myself to a risk of contamination through. It's in Waikiki, so there will be tourists going there, clueless tourists, and there'll be waiters picking up bottles and glasses and putting them down in handles in bathrooms and whatnot. So I'm taking this quite seriously, and I'd rather lose the $125 for the 2 tickets, which is not all that. I mean, you'll spend that on a balcony seat for one of the big name rock stars, but if you can even get tickets for that. But I'm going to bite the bullet and sacrifice that money to keep my health. So,
well, that's vital. I mean, we're living on the top of a hill here. Luckily, it's musical chairs. It's where are you when the music stops? I mean, I happened to have gone to London, but got back the day before it everything was closed down in Italy, and came to Fermo, which is this, because I'm doing some teaching here for a short time during a year in which I'm spending most of the time in Turin, which is really badly hit. But we flew to Fermo so I could do my teaching here, and everything stopped. So we were in Fermo when the music stopped, and we couldn't move anywhere. And luckily, we got a nice little flat here. It's on the top of a hill in a rural area, and we can isolate ourselves and continue to live quite well. And I got my computer, so
have you got enough food for a few days? Have you got enough food for a few weeks?
Yeah, the food shops are open, so that's and people are following. You scarcely see a human being, and in fact, if you see a human being on the street, there's usually a police car stopping them and asking them what they're doing, why are they walking around the street. So it's very seriously done. We sort of feel if we just stay inside, we're okay. But a lot of people can't do that. I mean, like you can, but with some difficulty. But somebody living in, say, Milan, that's one of the troubles with the modern world. Everybody's cities are too big, and they're too crowded, and they're too interdependent. People can't live without endless contacts, and that makes it very difficult to have a sort of self-restraint type.
Thank you, Peter. I want to thank you for speaking with me. And let's reconvene in a couple of days and see where things have gone.